You're listening to the 49 Carats podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats podcast. I'm your host, Steph, and today I am joined by someone who usually I'm on his show, on his podcast, and today he gets to join me, Ryan Hensley. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. That intro is a banger. It's like some Cash Money type stuff. I like that.
Some Cash Money. Okay, yeah. I haven't heard that one before, but yeah, that's a good comparison right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's dope getting you on the show because, like I said, usually I'm on yours. So, and we were just talking about it a little bit ago. It's nice to get your thoughts, and what you think about the 49ers and this matchup. So I'm excited to talk about this game with you. First, let me get to this comment real quick. 49ers throwback. I'm assuming this is the same 49ers throwback that's on Twitter, like always supporting all of the content creators. So I appreciate all the love. So I appreciate you being on with us today. But Ryan, 49ers, Cowboys, it's a rivalry renewed, right? It's like the new age rivalry. I assume that, you watched a lot of 49ers football back in the day when, okay, I don't want to make you sound old, back in your day. But you know what I mean? Like back when that rivalry was at its peak, like in the 80s and the early 90s. So what can you say about your experience as a fan back then and how that rivalry kind of fuels how you feel about this game now?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was excited to see this matchup. Honestly, I was born in '79. I don't really remember the '80s games that much. Some of them, but really the '90s. That's when it was like. That's when that's when I was in my teens, and that's when I was really just like really picking up on watching football. And it was always, I swear, it was like always 49ers Green Bay or 49ers Dallas throughout that whole time period. So I have a lot of friends, for some reason, a lot of people in the Bay Area were Cowboys fans. I don't get it. Like, to me, if you grew up in the 90s in the Bay Area, you should be a Niners fan, but whatever. I got a lot of friends that are Cowboys fans. So, just the whole rivalry, just the memories of those games, bringing it back. And, with the game last year, that kind of renewed it as well. And so being able to play them again in the playoffs, that's nice. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And looking at this matchup, both of these teams, like, to me, they're similar in that they're balanced. Like, I think they're good on both sides of the ball, you can say, although I'm going to say that the 49ers are a little bit better, especially on offense. Actually, especially on both sides of the ball. So I would say that the Cowboys have improved from last year. I think their defense has improved. I think Micah Parsons is playing a little bit better than last year. But I also feel like the 49ers, you can say their defense is better than last year as well. Nick Bosa, fingers crossed, he doesn't have a concussion in this game, right?
Yeah.
And this offense is just a nightmare to defend because there's so many pieces. You can guard one guy all you want. You can key in on one guy, but there's going to be 3, 4, 5 guys that are just as capable of making the play. So how do you feel about how these two teams match up on either side of the ball? Like, is there one matchup in particular that you're like, boom, that's where the 49ers beat them?
Yeah, I think the run game is going to be key for beating them against the run. The Dallas Cowboys don't do a great job of stopping the run. So, 49ers play to their identity, which, we saw in the Seattle game, Kyle really didn't do that in the first half. But you saw the first drive in the second half. That was the 49ers identity. That was one of my favorite drives all season, right? It was just, marching down the field, play action, run, play action, run. I feel like if Kyle Shanahan sticks to that script, Cowboys are going to have a tough time stopping the run. So I think that's key for the 49ers. But like you said, I think Cowboys, they're a pretty balanced team. To me, 49ers have the best roster in NFL. But I would put Cowboys, top 5 or 6 and well-rounded throughout. Right. So a decent roster for sure.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point about running the football because I think also the fact that the Cowboys are coming in on a short week, they might even still be a little bit sore from that game on
Yeah.
Monday. It was it was an easier matchup for them going up against the Bucks, but at the same time, it was physical. Like you watch that game, you could see like they were playing pretty physical. So they might be hurting on Sunday, something I kind of hope, right? And so obviously the 49ers are well rested. They like
Yeah.
to play a physical brand of football already, as we know on both sides of the ball. So I think that's something that the 49ers can look to really key in on. That should be the game plan to run the football, play that bully ball type of offense that we love, and try to stay on the field as long as possible because their defense, again, on a short week, they might be more tired or they'll as the game progresses, they won't be able to take those hits like they did in the beginning of the game, maybe because it all starts to build up. So yeah, I think that's something that the 49ers offense could look to do, run the football a lot. Something I was kind of surprised they didn't do more of in this past game against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Seahawks were one of the worst
Yeah.
defending the run. But I also feel like, maybe they were the Seahawks were a little more prepared for the run, so that's why they were passing. So maybe they wanted the Cowboys to think this is a pass heavy group now, and maybe we shouldn't prepare as much against the run.
Yeah.
That's when he hit him with the run.
Well, I mean, I think that's the beautiful thing about this 49ers team, at least over since Brock Purdy took over.
Yeah.
I've been dying to see a passing game from the 49ers. I've been dying to see a high scoring offense from the 49ers. And under Kyle Shanahan, we really haven't seen it throughout his entire tenure until he took over. So this, the 49ers are the most balanced offensively
Yeah.
that I've seen that I can remember under Kyle Shanahan, at least. And we were talking about it this morning. It seems like, honestly, this offense, I mean, it depends on what happens over these next couple of weeks, but this 49ers offense is probably the best offense I can remember since the 90s. I can't think of a better offense. There might be a couple defensive teams like 2012, 2019 that were similar, close, but offensively, I don't know, man. I don't see any other 49ers team since the 90s that was this potent on offense.
Yeah. On the other hand, for the Cowboys, like I thought Dak looked pretty he was efficient, against the Bucks. And you can say what you want about the Bucks, like certainly to an extent, they're not as good a team as the 49ers, right? We
Yeah.
all know this, but I think we might see a better game from Dak than we did maybe last season in the playoffs, just because we saw what Geno Smith was able to do. We've seen what a couple of teams at this point have been able to do. They've been able to move the ball through the air against this 49ers defense. And that's one area of concern, whether it be minor concern. It depends who you ask. Sometimes, you ask one person and they're like, I'm really concerned about this. And then you ask another and they're like, they'll be okay. But, I think we could see a more efficient Cowboys offense. But I think the 49ers can overcome that. I think that's the point, right? Because let's just say it becomes a shootout. Let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 49ers can keep up and they got the weapons to score points, as we know. So whether it's a defensive battle or a shootout, I like the 49ers in this one. Sean Sullivan here in the comments says, is Mike McCarthy our best weapon against the Cowboys? We say, what do you think about this, Ryan? You think Mike McCarthy is, how good of a coach do you think he is running this team?
I think we definitely have the coaching advantage. That's for sure. I'm not a big fan. I know he won a Super Bowl, but I'm not the biggest Mike fan. I think Kyle Shanahan is definitely the best coach out of the two. So that's another advantage for the 49ers. I think we have a few advantages. Obviously, we're home field, right? I think our defense is overall better, offense overall better. Right now, Brock Purdy's playing better, although Dak played lights out yesterday. But coaching's better. The Cowboys are flying from Florida to Dallas, then to California. They have 2 less days to heal up and prepare. I think the 49ers win this one, but I don't see it as like a big blowout game like we've been seeing. I think it's going to be a little closer than that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I tell people, right? It's like, this is the playoffs now. You can't expect to blow everyone out, So as we get closer, as we continue on, every team's going to get better. So I expect the Cowboys to give the 49ers not a challenge, but just I expect them to keep up. At least in the first half, it might be like a close game. But at the end of the day, like I said, this 49ers offense, and lately it's been the halftime adjustments to me that have been it's been the difference in the world in these last few games and how they've really been able to take over games, even if they start slow. And that's the crazy thing about it is like, they're only playing like one perfect half of football and like they're leaving some crumbs, out there. So can you imagine this team if they're able to put it all together for a full 4 quarters? I'm not sure there's any team in the NFL who can keep up with them, honestly.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. If they're able to put 4 quarters together, they're going to be trouble. I mean, that's a sign of a good coach is the halftime adjustments. And that was actually one of my critiques on Kyle Shanahan earlier in his career with the 49ers. It seems like he would come out, it seems like they always started really well, right, with the opening script. And then halftime, they wouldn't make the adjustments and they would struggle in the fourth quarter if it was closer, they're behind. It's totally changed. Whatever it is about Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, just trust him 100%. And Brock Purdy's out there doing his thing, and they go into the locker room at halftime, D'Amico and Kyle, and they both improve. And that's the ultimate sign of a good coach.
Yeah. And Brock Purdy, it seems like he settles in. He's been settling in lately. I mean, it seemed like he had the first playoff game jitters, in that game against Seattle. But what are you expecting from him in this game against the Cowboys, who I think is the best defense that he will have faced thus far? So what can we expect, you think, from Brock?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I have there's two things that concern me. It's not really I'm not concerned about Brock. I really think he's outstanding. I don't think it's really fool's gold at this point. We've seen him do his thing. But this is going to be the toughest challenge that they face outside of the Chiefs. The Chiefs in this game, the toughest games the 49ers have had all year. And it's definitely going to be a tough challenge for Brock Purdy. I expect him to have moments where it's hard for him. But I think he'll be able to do his thing. That's the thing about Kyle Shanahan. He's doing such a great job. I mean, receivers are wide open. He's making it easy for Brock, honestly. I mean, what other quarterback in the NFL is in a better position than Brock Purdy is right now? And that's not a knock on Brock Purdy. I'm not trying to downgrade what he's doing, but he's in a great situation with the tools that are around him, the weapons that are around him, and then the plays that Kyle Shanahan is dialing up. So I think they'll figure it out. And again, I think the secret on offense for the 49ers is the run game anyway. So if Kyle, he seems to really want to just throw the ball with Brock Purdy, and I've been enjoying it because we haven't had a pass game in a long time. But I really feel like if he's run heavy in this game, I think that's really favors the 49ers.
I feel like Kyle Shanahan kind of does, and maybe I'm just like, maybe this is a conspiracy theory in my head, but like, it looks like to me sometimes he tries to do things over and over in a game, in the span of a few games, make it look like a trend, and then he kind of flips it and has a counter for it. So we've been seeing a lot of passing lately from Brock Purdy. Do you think maybe he's trying to set up the thought in defense's minds that, they're pass heavy, this is how we stop Brock and this and that, but then hit him with the run, like over and over, play that bully ball, play Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell getting a ton of carries, because Elijah Mitchell hasn't been getting a lot of carries since he came back from his last injury. These last 2 games he's been back. I actually thought he'd get more in that Seahawks game, but he was really just spelling Christian McCaffrey when he'd get a big run and he'd have a few things in the red zone. But I don't know. This might be the game where we see more Elijah and McCaffrey on the ground, and I think that could be good. You think about divisional games in the past for this 49ers team and what they've done. We remember the Raheem Mostert, what was it, like 3 touchdowns that he had, and like, what was it, like 200 rushing yards or something crazy like that? So could we see a game like that against the Cowboys? I'm not ruling it out.
I think it's going to be. I just got a feeling it's a big Debo. I think this is Debo time. Like I feel like Kyle's been holding off on Debo all season long,
Yes.
and we started to see, man, Debo in the playoffs. He's just got this competitiveness to him,
Yes.
and he just wants to hurt people. And it's great to see from an offensive player. And I think we're going to see a lot of Debo in this game on Sunday.
I like that. More than anyone, I think that's the guy you can lean on because he's so dependable. And yes, to your point, he's a different animal in the playoffs. Yeah, we have limited time of seeing him in the playoffs, but we've seen enough to know he's
Yeah.
just he's a different breed. Like he turns it up a notch. And I don't know if you saw, but there's like a little clip that circulated of a Cowboys fan who I'm assuming is a friend of Debo's who was at the Cowboys game. And he FaceTimed Debo,
Yeah,
and
I did see
I
that.
don't know what for. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, are
yeah,
you playing the game on Sunday? But
yeah,
like, what do you think about that? And like, there was so much talk about poking the bear, right? After the Jonathan Abrams and what he did, extracurricular with Debo's ankle. And so poking the bear, getting these the 49ers and Debo fired up before this game doesn't feel very smart to me. We think.
No, I think that was one of the biggest mistakes that Seattle made last game was doing that. Like
Yeah,
you pissed off the whole team. Even Kyle was out there ready to do his thing, right?
right.
So yeah, you don't want to piss off Debo, and I really just believe he's just an ultimate competitor. And when it comes to the playoffs, it all comes out. And it's going to be interesting. It might be a little chippy because you remember Micah Parsons got that mean stiff arm from Debo last year. And so, that matchup is going to be interesting if we see Debo in the run game and how Micah Parsons comes after him. So, but I think this, last season, Debo put this entire team on his back. And, when they were knocked out against the Rams, you saw all the emotion because he cared that much about it. It all just came out. And I think, again, Debo is one of the leaders on this team with his play. And even though there's the weird offseason last year about, wanting to be trading and this and that, when it comes down to crunch time, he's out there competing. His teammates see that. And that's how Debo is a leader. And I expect him to, he doesn't have to put the team on his back as much this time because he has all these other weapons, CMC, all these other guys. But I expect to see some serious Debo time this Sunday.
Yeah, me too. I hope so. And that's just part of the culture that's been set by these players. People assume that culture was set by Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and all that, but no, really, it's just the players, and they set that tone of this physical brand of football that they play. And I'm not sure the Cowboys are ready for it. I don't think they were ready for it last season in that game, and I still don't think they're ready for it. There's a lot of talk. I mean, Micah Parsons says, after they beat the Bucks, he's like, now it's my turn or something like that. Okay. So I'm not believing all this talk that they're doing. It seems like the 49ers kind of live in their head rent free. It's almost like the Warriors with
Like Memphis.
is it with Memphis, man?
Yeah.
It's like they do all this talking and you think you're on that level, but you're not.
Right.
And the difference is that the Warriors have won a lot of championships to that point, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just you talk about it, but you're not about it.
Yeah.
And well, let's talk about Micah because, I mean, obviously this is a big game for him. I think he wants some revenge, right? Nick Bosa has been getting a lot of the accolades this season in a season that I thought Micah Parsons has done really well. Although the stats, if you look at them, point to Nick Bosa being the DPOY, and I agree that he should be the DPOY. But we might get a little extra juice from Micah. So how do you think the 49ers can try to counter the over aggression early from the Cowboys and what they might try to do with their pass rush?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's going to be just the run game. Honestly, use that aggression against them, attack with the run, get them on their heels a little bit, keeping it balanced. If we're too pass heavy, that benefits Michael Parsons. So I think the 49ers just need to really focus on that run game. I think that's really key. I keep saying it and probably too much, but I really think that's an important part of winning this game against the Cowboys. I think it's their weakness defensively is the run game. It also freezes Micah Parsons up. And so I think that's the key. It's just attack with the run. And then obviously, make sure your blocking schemes are good and that you have an outlet for Brock Purdy, especially if, McGlinchey's tasked with blocking Parsons. I'm not really worried about Trent Williams doing his thing, and McGlinchey's had a good season overall. It's just Michael Parsons is a beast. I think he has the highest.
Yeah,
he doesn't have as many sacks as Bosa, but I believe I saw he had the highest sack rate. So per rush, he's getting the most sacks. So it is something Niners need to look out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's shift to the defense real quick. And just a quick reminder to you guys watching, make sure you like this video if you have not yet. Come on, let's get those likes up. Appreciate all the love. Make sure you subscribe if you have not yet. Oh, damn it. I did the overlay thing. Here we go. There we go. We back. But let's talk about the defense. I mean, because this, I think, will be a big test for them, just because Dak looked good last week. I think someone was talking about, I think it was Rohan earlier on a Twitter Spaces. He was talking about the fact that Dak's numbers against the blitz are better than they are without it. So, but the 49ers aren't a blitz heavy team anyway. It just goes to show that he is good under pressure. It's probably better to just have a lot of man in coverage instead of having them rush the passer. So what do you think about how they could stop Dak in this game and some of these weapons that they have? Dalton Schultz, who seems to be his security blanket out there.
So my biggest concern going into this game, and again, I think the 49ers are going to win, but if they lose and if Dak's able to get off, the reason will be because the pass rush is not hitting home. We saw it against the Raiders. No sacks for Nick Bosa. Pass rush was not effective. And when that happens, you're asking your defensive backs to cover longer. And that leads to trouble, as we saw against the Raiders. So to me, the biggest key in this game defensively for the 49ers is putting pressure on Dak Prescott. And that doesn't have to come off of a blitz, right? You can do it with your 4 rushers, and you can still have those guys drop back into coverage. But with the 4 rushers, your 4 down linemen need to get after Dak Prescott and apply pressure to him. Otherwise, I mean, that's my fear, is that we could see something like we saw against the Raiders. They have similar, they have CeeDee Lamb, he's a good receiver. He's not Devontae Adams, but he's a good receiver. And then they got the tight end Schultz, he's a good tight end. And then you have Pollard, who's a 1,000-yard rusher. So, those weapons are not as good as the Raiders' weapons, but overall, I think they have a better offense in general. The other thing is a lot of people, 49ers fans, are referring to last year's game when Nick Bosa went down and they were still able to get 5 sacks on Dak Prescott. But what they're not coming into play, what they're not bringing up is the fact that they have 3 different offensive linemen this year. So it's not the same 5 linemen that we faced last year. And the sack numbers or the sacks allowed numbers for the Cowboys are down. So I don't expect that same offensive line. I don't expect our team to get 5 sacks on Dak Prescott this time. And so again, that's my biggest concern. If we don't get pressure on Dak Prescott, and I'm not talking about, sending additional blitzers or anything like that, just with our 4 linemen, if we don't get pressure on Dak, it could be a Raiders thing, and then we're asking Brock Purdy to win a shootout, which is I prefer not to. I'm not saying he can't. I just prefer not to go that route. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. One thing of note, it seems like their left tackle, he may be in jeopardy of missing this game. I believe he exited the game against the Bucs with a hip injury. And so we'll keep an eye on that throughout the week. It's still early. It's Tuesday, right? So there's still time, I guess, for him to, do whatever is done throughout the week to try to get out there. It's playoffs, so guys try to go out there even if they're not 100%. But something to keep an eye on. If their left tackle is out, that could be something of note in this game, especially if Nick Bosa is going to be rushing from that side, right? So
Tyler Smith is out. Okay.
Yeah. So I believe their backup is something McGovern. So he finished the game for them yesterday. So yeah, he'll likely be the guy, I think, on Sunday, but we just gotta see what happens throughout the week. Philip Bonger here says 4 total interceptions with a pick 6 from the defense on Sunday. 4 total interceptions is is a very like
A
ambitious
lot. Yeah.
prediction there, but I like where your head's at. I mean, I think the 49ers could definitely get an interception, I think, out of Dak, because if you look at Dak's numbers throughout the season, I believe he has 23 in this regular season only. He has 23 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. He has an interception in almost every game but 2 in the games that he played in the regular season, which he didn't play all of them. So I think he
Yeah, he leads the NFL in interceptions, and he
yeah,
missed 5 games, so that's not
yeah,
good. Yeah.
that's crazy. And there are plenty of those games in which he threw 2 interceptions.
Mhm.
So I think the 49ers could get at least one with how they've been playing lately. I mean, we saw Lenore get one this past week. So I think this secondary is ready and they're gonna be ball hawking, you know what I mean? So I think it could set up for a good game for the secondary. And what do you think about Lenore? Like the fact that, you know, we've been wondering about him, these last few weeks. Will he be good enough for the playoffs? Will he be a liability? And, he comes out against the Seahawks in a third matchup, by the way. So, like,
Yeah.
familiar with each other. And Lockett, Metcalf, 2 very good receivers, going up against a quarterback who has a 70% completion percentage. And he put up some good numbers for a corner. So how are we feeling about Lenore? Is this just a one-off or can he keep this going?
So I think in general, NFL fans are way too hard on corners. They
Mhm.
expect them to be perfect. It's outside of quarterback, it's the hardest position to play in the NFL, in my opinion. It's very hard to
Yeah.
be perfect. Like fans expect perfection. You give up a pass, you give up one play, maybe it's a deep one, maybe it's like a 50-yard pass, and they're like, oh, this guy sucks. He's a clown. He gave up a pass. Like it's really hard, right? The play that Lenore, who was it against? It was against Arizona, AJ Green. It was like a
Mhm.
50-yard pass. That was clearly an offensive pass interference. They don't
Yeah.
call that in the NFL anymore, but he got 2 hands shoved in the back. He's right there.
He
I
was
don't
in
have
position.
I don't have a problem with Lenore. I think he's like a third or fourth corner, and he plays like a third or fourth corner. He just happens to
Yeah.
have to play the 2 spot right now because we've had so many injuries. But I don't have a problem with Lenore. I mean, there are people mad at Charvarius last week for Metcalf. I think these guys are what they are. Again, though, I think the most important thing is the pass rush. If you have a good pass rush, then you're helping those guys out tremendously. And that's the best thing that the 49ers defense can do for these DBs.
Yeah, I agree. And it is a tough job for sure. I mean, I think he held it down um, for the most part. And I'm not worried about Charvarius one bit. Like, my brother-in-law was like texting me. He's like, I told you Charvarius sucked. He told me like a couple weeks ago. And I was like, no, dude, you're tripping. And
Yeah.
he had that game against Metcalf. And I was like, he doesn't suck, but he is having a challenging day
Yeah.
against Metcalf, which that's true. But I think he'll bounce back, so I'm not too worried about it. And the thing
Yeah.
is, I think it's all about confidence when it comes to corners, right? So maybe Lenore just had an extra bit of confidence. Maybe Charvarius, after like a completion or 2 that he allowed, maybe he was just the opposite, right? But at the end of the day, I think both of these guys are capable. And to your point about Lenore, I think the expectations are so high for him just because he's on one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
So the expectation is that every single person on the defense is going to be A plus all the time, and
Yeah.
anything less, you suck, you're a liability. Yeah, I think maybe the expectations were too high to begin with, but I think he's solid, and what we saw, I think, against Seattle tells you that he is capable of it. I knew he was capable because he did it. He had some really good stretches in the regular season as well. So it's all about putting it together and just being consistent with it. And so if he could just do it for a few more games, I
Yeah.
think the 49ers are going to be in a good spot. Ace here says this should be D'Amico's best coaching game, especially if teams are trying to hire him. He can't let down on this one. What do you think about that? Do you think there's something to this that like when assistant coaches or like defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators that are being like courted for head coaching jobs, do you think they put in a little extra to try to like show these teams like, okay, this is what I could do kind of thing, or they not even think about that? It's all about the game that's in front of them.
For D'Amico, the thing is, if anything, I think it's going to be, he's got 4 interviews this week.
Yeah.
And these aren't like, it's not like that he's interviewing to work at Walmart, right? No offense to anyone that works at Walmart, but these are like big time jobs, right? He's gotta prepare for these meetings. So if anything, he's going to be a little distracted. But the thing about D'Amico and this 49ers defense is it's not complex. There's nothing exotic about it. He basically he just lines guys up, and we play man on man, go beat the man in front of you. There's nothing crazy or exotic about this defense. Now, if the defense struggles, it's going to become into question, like, was he distracted by these 4 interviews this week? You're going to hear that if the defense struggles. So prepare yourselves, 49er fans. I can see that happening. But again, I think the 49ers have the edge. It's going to be a close game. 49ers are going to be able to win. And so everything will be fine, I believe. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, Mike McDaniel went through the same thing last season as well, where he was taking on head coaching interviews while preparing for games. So I think the fact that he's doing it at the end of the week, once like they've already installed the game plan, at that point it's really just practicing, and guys are pretty much ready to go. So I think he'll be ready both for the interview and for the game. And we'll see. But yeah, I think he might throw in a little something extra just to show teams you can have this. This is what is part of my resume right here, just so you can see. But it'll be interesting, and I think the fact that D'Amico, he's gone against this team before last season, so I think he has a rough idea of how to game plan against the Cowboys, and I think it should be good. But on a specific player on the defense, Nathan here is asking about Drake Jackson, who has been inactive. He's been a healthy scratch for the last few games, and that was after he got an interception, actually. I believe that was against the Raiders, right? So that has been, Kyle Shanahan kind of brushed it off as like, oh, it's because of the game plan that we had. We were more focused on stopping the run. But what do you think? Do you think there's something more to this? Because now it's been like a couple of games in a row, and I'm wondering like if he's in the trademarked rookie doghouse.
Well, you see how Kyle Shanahan treats rookies in general. I think that's all we're seeing here. I mean, he does struggle against the run, but against the pass, I think I would love to see more Drake Jackson on 3rd and long, because whenever he's in there, whenever he's involved, he does good things. And I would imagine he has one of the highest rates as far as like tipping passes. He's always got his hands on the ball. I really think Drake Jackson is going to be special in this league. I would like to see him mix in there on the 3rd and long sometimes. But again, I think the main reason why you're not seeing him is just because hasn't been great against the run. And so I think Kyle was being honest about that. But he's also a rookie, and Kyle doesn't give much love to rookies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. It's probably a little bit of both, right? Just the fact that, you have to stop the run first. I think first and foremost for the 49ers and this defense, like that's kind of their philosophy and their game plan against anyone. You stop the run first, and then everything else kind of starts to like domino effect and fall. The chips fall from there. Yeah. But that's the most important thing. And if you don't do that, you put yourself in a very tough spot. So I could see it from that standpoint that, they want to stop the run. Okay, that's fair. But I'm with you. Drake Jackson on those 3rd and longs, like he'd be putting his hands up. He's just very disruptive. Even when he's not around the ball, you see him. He's trying to make a play at all moments. So I appreciate that about him. And maybe we'll see more of him next season. I think he's a very exciting player to me. Someone who I'm very excited to watch, like as he grows and progresses in this defense.
I imagine he'll have a big year next year.
I think so. Nathan asks, are we going to see some Mason reps? Hey, it's a possibility if the 49ers go run heavy and maybe they get a lead, a big enough lead that they feel comfortable having Jordan Mason out there. That's always a possibility. But otherwise, I would think that they're gonna roll with McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. But what do you think? Do you think we see any Mason this week?
Mason's kind of in the same boat as Drake Jackson, right? Mason, when he's out there, he looks great, but he's a rookie. And you know how Kyle does with rookies. The thing is, though, Christian McCaffrey is such a phenomenal talent. And then Elijah Mitchell has never fumbled in his college or NFL career. And so for Kyle, that's the big thing. I think it's just like, I know I can put Elijah Mitchell out there. I know what he's going to do, and I know he's not going to turn over the ball. And I think in the playoffs, that's what makes Kyle the most comfortable. So I would like to see Jordan Mason, but I doubt we see a lot of them unless the game's completely in hand. Maybe a couple runs. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a playoffs. It's really high stakes at this point. So there's no reason to mess with what you have going. And I think things are going pretty well with McCaffrey and Elijah. So I know we're all excited and anxious to see some of these rookies who, we see as being long-term players on this team, exciting players, but we got to keep that in mind. This is high stakes. We can't just be throwing anyone out there, because I saw we had a question about Danny Gray as well. I think Danny Gray, another one who I think is on the same boat. He just needs to kind of become a little more well-rounded in what he does, and he'll have to earn those snaps, right? But as of right now, I don't think we see him out there for these playoff games. Yeah. So
another talented guy, just rookie. Give him. He's got to has to earn his stripes with Kyle Shanahan. So maybe next year will be a good year for him.
We see Kyle still picking on Brandon Ayuk, which at this point I think Ayuk is responding really well to it. So it's fine, but I think it takes guys some time when they're rookies to kind of handle that tough love, because it is tough when you're first year in the league and you're getting told like all these things that you do wrong after in college. Everyone was telling you probably what you were doing right. So
how great you are your whole life. Yeah.
So it's different, and some guys respond to that differently as well. So I think it just takes some time. The good thing is there's a lot of veterans on this team that can kind of tell them, hey, I went through that too, and you just got to do this and that. So they'll get there. They'll get their stripes and they'll get those opportunities. But for now, I mean, let the starters cook. I have a lot of trust in these starters. So, all right, we're at 37 minutes. Before I let you get out of here, let's talk predictions, like score predictions. Have you thought about this yet? Do you got any thoughts?
I'll tell you that I think the Niners are going to win, and it's going to be 10 points or less. I haven't put my score prediction. I usually don't do that till Friday, but I think the Niners are going to win. It's going to be 10 points or less, and I don't think they're going to score as many points as they have been the last several weeks. But I also think the Cowboys are going to put up more than 20. So I don't have an exact prediction somewhere, but it's going to be – I think it's going to be 10 points or less, a little maybe under 30 for the Niners, maybe over 20 for the Cowboys, somewhere in that range. I'll give my full prediction on Friday. I feel better about my predictions as the week plays out and I start to see who's injured and I hear more things. So I'll say that till Friday, but I think Niners pull it off.
That's fair. I also think they pull it off. I also have a much more thought through score prediction at the end of the week too. But an early prediction, I do say the 49ers win, obviously. And I think it will be close too. I think it will be within the 10-point range, just because I think these teams are evenly matched somewhat, as far as them being balanced on both sides of the ball. I think they're capable of scoring points. And I think like defensively, I think they're capable of stopping the offense as well. So I'm going to say 27-21.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. It just feels right,
Feels
like
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sean says at least Gold can kick the extra points. Whew, yeah, that could be a factor in this game. I just know one thing, that Levi's is going to be rocking whenever that guy steps on the field, because they're gonna try to make him a little extra nervous knowing what he did against the Bucks.
Is
And
he still on the team?
yeah, they're gonna roll with him.
Crazy. I would not. He needs a sports psychologist right now. I thought we watched that man lose his job on national TV last night.
That's the dangerous thing though with
Yeah.
with kickers and starting to miss kicks, because they get in their own head, and
Yeah.
it's hard to break that, especially in the playoffs. Like, it's high stakes. Luckily, it didn't have a big impact on that game, but it very well could have, and it very well could on Sunday. So something to
Yeah.
keep an eye on. But Ryan, that's all I have today. But let people know where they can find you, your channel, all that.
Yeah, you can find me on pretty much all social media platforms. My YouTube channel is just my name. You can find me on Twitter. It's just Ryan G. Hensley. I use the G because there's a ton of Ryan Hensleys, not because I'm a narcissist or anything. But yeah, so it's Ryan G. Hensley. You can find me on Twitter and on YouTube. Every morning, 8 a.m., Steph's on with me every Monday.
Yeah, yes, I am. And I love the morning slot. I love that you do those, because not a lot of people do it. So if you guys want to start your morning off with some 49ers content, make sure you subscribe to Ryan's channel. Appreciate you being on, Ryan. And appreciate all of you guys spending your Tuesday afternoon, evening, whatever it is for you guys, with us today. And have a good rest of your guys' evening. Peace. Oh my God.